Hey guys, it's FlexTales, and I just want to let you know that there's going to be a lot of Metal Gear Solid spoilers in this video. So if you haven't played Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain, just go ahead and stop, do your due diligence, and not watch this video until you play it. Or if you're never going to play it, which is totally fine, feel free to continue watching, but just understand that I'm going to talk about everything that's inside of this game. So I'm a huge Metal Gear fan. I want to preface you with that right away, because I think that's going to help explain my case. I'm incredibly disappointed with Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. And I'm sure that's going to shock some of you, because the game got like rave reviews, 10 out of 10s across the board. What's the deal with that? It's not a bad game. In fact, technically it's quite impressive. Let's talk about the good first. I really like the stealth sandbox. It's very fun, it's very clever, very thorough. It's like the GTA 5 of stealth games. They've literally thought of everything. You can make your horse poop and it'll spin out cars on the road. I think the game falls apart when you start pointing fingers and calling it a Metal Gear Solid game. The Phantom Pain as a Metal Gear game is incredibly weak. Let's start with my biggest gripe, or one of my biggest gripes. The bosses. Holy crap. What happened? In previous Metal Gear games, we had the coolest bosses in video game history. We had Psycho Mantis, a boss that literally required you to get up, unplug your controller from the PlayStation, and plug it into port 2. That was the coolest thing I'd ever done in a video game as like a 10-year-old child. There was the End from Metal Gear Solid 3, a sniper that blended in with his environment so well that you could hardly ever find him, and when you did, he'd sneak away. So you had like this 2 to 3 hour long sniper battle, and if you wanted to trank kill him, holy crap was that a hard battle. But the caveat was, if you saved your game and you left and came back 3 weeks later, he was dead of old age. Alternatively, you could have sniped him when you saw him coming out of that one military compound and just killed him off early. The Phantom Pain has none of that. There are no clever nuances to the bosses in the Phantom Pain, and I think that's a huge problem off the bat. I can think of 3 bosses that I fought in the Phantom Pain. There was Sniper Quiet. Now, to be fair, I did have a funny experience with Sniper Quiet. Earlier in the game, I had to get ammo for myself, so I called a supply drop on my current location, thinking, that's how you get supplies. And as I continued to look at my iDroid, the supplies hit me on my head and knocked me out, and my horse, because I was on the horse when it happened. And I thought that was pretty funny. So when I was fighting Quiet, I'm tranking her, because I don't kill people in Metal Gear games. So I trank her, and then I run out of trank bullets. So I call in a supply drop on her head, and it knocks out half of her stamina, and it's pretty funny. And that's how I beat Sniper Quiet, which, was kind of fun. But then later on in the game, I realized she is seriously one of the most powerful characters in the series. She can do things that no other character in the series can do as a human, or as a parasite-infected human. So that boss fight should have been epic. It should have been like the End boss fight, but instead of her blending in, she's just like jumping around, attacking me. That's not what I got. I got someone who sat in one place until I shot her, and then she went to another place, and I shot her, and then she went to another place, and I called a supply drop on her head, and that was it. Sniper Quiet was beaten. That simply. It was like maybe 10 minutes of my time. Complete and utter letdown. And then we get to the boss with Volgin, aka the Man on Fire. So, weird story quirks aside with the Man on Fire, that fight was pathetic. He's coming towards me, I'm gonna shoot at that water tower, and that's how you beat a Man on Fire. Real clever. I would never think water beat fire in a game. And, given that you had to fight him on a flaming Pegacorn earlier in the game, you would expect some sort of epic Pegacorn horse fight hybrid amalgamation water gun, I don't know. And lastly, there's the disappointing Salamantropus fight. Forget the fact that Salamantropus, the Metal Gear of this game, seems like it's way more advanced than any of the Metal Gears you fight up until like Metal Gear Solid 2, if not maybe 4. The fight was pathetically easy. I already had a rocket launcher that I'd upgraded to level 3, and all it took was me just running around, shooting at the various components on his body, and he died. And I beat him on my first try, and it took me like 10 minutes. And I felt incredibly let down because I found out that was the end of Chapter 1. Now, I don't single out and point my finger at Kojima. That man has a track record of making amazing games. Heck, he made an amazing demo, okay? This seems like a Konami problem. I think this game was pushed out the door. Because if you look at the introductory scene to the game, that hour-and-a-half cinematic gameplay hybrid of escaping the hospital, and how intense and emotional and clever and nuanced and amazing that scene was, it felt like a Kojima game up to that point. And I was completely blown away, to the point that I think I said, that's like the best first level I've ever played since the first BioShock when the plane crashes. Those are like two of the coolest opening levels I've ever played. Just completely immersive and enthralling. And if you haven't played the game, I suggest you go watch a YouTube video because it's totally worth your time just to watch someone play through this scene. It's phenomenal. This is definitely my biggest problem. I may have said earlier that that was the biggest. This is definitely the biggest thing. The story is weak. There are just large portions of the story that are missing. You literally go from being on a mission with Quiet to a scene of her getting interrogated by Ocelot Miller. And like, how did we just came back on the helicopter, why is she getting interrogated? It doesn't make sense. There are huge plot holes with the whole parasitic infection language thing. I think it's clever. Parasitic lingual infestation, yeah, that's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool villain, but you didn't think about one thing here, and that is, if you write, you can still communicate via words, typings, or writings. I listened to all the Code Talker cassette tapes, and I never heard him say, you couldn't write. Now, unless Quiet just, only spoke Navajo, and she could only write in Navajo, and she spoke English really well, and she could read the iDroid really well, but she couldn't write. It makes no sense why she doesn't communicate with anybody the entire game. If you've played it and you have some sort of logical reason why this doesn't work, feel free to post in the comments and be like, Flex doesn't know what he's talking about. They clearly say you can't write, but that doesn't make sense because the parasite's in your vocal cords, not in your fingers and your brain. They clearly say that. That's not the only glaring problem with this story. Here's the biggest spoiler. Big Boss is not the main character in Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Whoa, did I just drop a bomb? Yes, you play as Venom Snake, who is not Big Boss, but Big Boss's trusted lieutenant who becomes Big Boss through the magic of plastic surgery and hypnotization, I guess. You don't know this for the 60+ hours you play this game. You think you're playing as Big Boss, and you're questioning yourself like, he doesn't seem nearly as clever or fun or, sure of himself as he did in previous games, and, there's a reason for that. It's not him. But by the time you learn it, you are so fed up with the game because you're just playing side quests to unlock the last cutscenes. You don't even care. You're like, that would have been clever had it happened, 20 some odd hours ago. In fact, I think it would have been more clever if it was 10 hours in, bam, you're not Big Boss. You're Venom Snake. And then you see it. Because then for the rest of the game, you no longer have to play and feel like you're Big Boss. You're Venom Snake. You're technically playing as yourself. Because the first thing you do in the game is make yourself. You write your name down. So you're playing as yourself, aka Venom Snake. I'm Venom Snake, you're Venom Snake, we're all Venom Snake here. And telling you this at the very last cutscene of the game ruins any of the fun you can have with this concept. Now you know that he knows, so your character in the game knows, but I don't know this. This revelation should have occurred much earlier in the game. The twist that happens at the end can still be just as fun if it happens in the middle and or closer to the beginning if it's executed correctly. It's a twist is a twist is a twist. It doesn't matter where it is. When you build it up to be something, fantastically amazing, and then it's just this, oh, hey, Big Boss is out doing his own thing. This explains why he's so legendary soldier. Come on, that's the best you can do? You should have told me this, hours ago. Honestly, I think had they told me much earlier in the game, my enjoyment of it would have gone up. Because I probably wouldn't have gone the whole stealth playthrough anymore. I probably would have started, capping dudes because I'm not Big Boss. I'm not the legendary soldier. In fact, I'm a guy who is playing a guy who is a legendary soldier, and I'm going to make this legend my own. And the very last thing you see in the game is the big boss is giving him a cassette tape, or he's reading a cassette tape that's like, hey, Solid Snake's gonna come kill you probably. That's how it ends, and it's not a bad way to end. I don't dislike the ending. I know a lot of people hate it. I don't hate it. It's not Mass Effect 3 bad, but I would say it just feels weak. Feels very weak. The entire game feels weak, and now you've pulled this weak twist on me? Should have told me sooner, man. You should have let me know. I would have totally gone along with it. And I think that's the biggest problem with the game. It's got kid gloves on. Nothing is difficult. Nothing is nuanced. It doesn't make you think at all, really. In fact, if you listen to the cassette tapes, it really spells everything out for you. Where in previous games, you kind of had to think about things and question, is that person really who they say they are? And is he a double agent? But this one's just like, hey, if you listen to the cassette tape, we're gonna straight up tell you what's going on. It's just kid gloves the entire time. Nothing's hard, nothing's nuanced, nothing's clever, and then the twists are weak, and you're just like, let me explain this to you. I don't know. Do you guys agree? Let's have a discussion. Let's talk this through. You know, like let's all get together and say, hey, you know, maybe Metal Gear Solid 5 isn't a 10 out of 10. Maybe it's like a 7 out of 10. Maybe it's a 6 out of 10. Because that's how I feel. If this gets Game of the Year, I will rage. All right? There are better games out there. You know what I honestly think? I think something's going to come out 6 months from now from one of the guys who worked on the game, and it's going to be like, that game is nowhere near done. 50% complete. Because that's what it feels like to me. It feels like the story was 50% finished. I beat the game last night, and I just couldn't even I couldn't even sleep right. I was just like, man, that was disappointing. Oh, man, what happened? Konami! Kojima! Oh, Kojima-san! This must be how parents feel when their kids, you know, start listening to the Backstreet Boys. And, you know, they grew up with the Rolling Stones and the Beatles, I guess. I don't know. Sorry, Mom and Dad. Let's have an honest talk. Let's work through this together. If you haven't beaten it and you've heard my spiel, what do you think? Am I crazy? Am I wrong? If you have beaten it, what do you think? I'm not crazy, right? I'm not wrong, but I'm totally willing to debate with you that I am. Let's have a very cool discussion about what we think. I think this game is going to be talked about for years to come because of how bizarre it is. How strange it is to be the last game in a company like Konami's legacy of making console games. This is the last Konami console game that's not going to be Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pro Evolution Soccer. We'll never get another Metal Gear. We'll never get another Silent Hill or Castlevania. It's just not going to happen because they don't want to make those games anymore. So this is the ending. This is the requiem of Konami. How does it make you feel? Makes me feel like crap. So, what do you guys think? Let's have a chat. All right. See ya.